All right, let's dive into this because the White Sox just made some moves that have everyone talking. And personally, I think there's a lot more to unpack here than just the roster changes. So the big news? They've moved on from Austin Hayes and Everson Pereira, bringing in Brenton Doyle and sticking with Randal Grichuk. But what makes this really interesting is the why behind these decisions. It's not just about who's hitting better right now. It's about defense, clubhouse culture, and, most importantly, the team's long-term vision. Let's break it down. First off, the Austin Hayes situation. When they signed him to that one-year, $6 million deal, the hope was he'd be a solid veteran presence, maybe even a platoon masher. But here's the thing. He's been sidelined with injuries since May. And his numbers? Just .233 / .250 / .326 in 12 games. Now, I get it. Injuries happen. But in my opinion, the White Sox are in a position where they can't afford to wait around for a player to maybe, possibly, find his rhythm. They're in a competitive season, and every game counts. So, designating him for assignment? It's a tough call, but it's also a pragmatic one. What many people don't realize is that this isn't just about Hayes' performance. It's about the opportunity cost of keeping him on the roster when someone like Grichuk is producing and fitting into the clubhouse culture. Speaking of Grichuk, yeah, his numbers have cooled off a bit, but he's still hitting .275 / .312 / .565. And here's where it gets fascinating. The White Sox aren't just looking at stats. They're looking at fit. Grichuk has become a part of the team's culture, and that matters. If you take a step back and think about it, baseball is as much about chemistry as it is about talent. A detail I find fascinating is how the front office is prioritizing players who not only perform, but also mesh with the team's identity. It's a smarter approach than just chasing numbers, in my opinion. Now, let's talk about Brenton Doyle. This acquisition, to me, is the most intriguing move of the deadline. Why? Because it's not just about filling a need, it's about potential. Chris Getz said it himself. They see untapped offensive potential in Doyle. And what this really suggests is that the White Sox are betting on their ability to develop players. They're not just looking for plug-and-play solutions. They're looking for guys they can mold into long-term contributors. Personally, I think this is where the White Sox are separating themselves from other teams. They're not just reacting to the present. They're building for the future. But here's the kicker. Doyle's success isn't guaranteed. He's got to prove he can stay healthy and produce at the major league level. So, it's a risk, but one that could pay off big time if their projections are right. And then there's Everson Pereira, who's also been DFA'd. His situation is similar to Hayes. Injuries have limited his availability, and the team can't afford to wait. What's really striking here is how the White Sox are balancing short-term needs with long-term goals. They're not just patching holes. They're thinking about 2026 and beyond. This raises a deeper question. How many teams are willing to make tough decisions now for potential payoff later? Not many, in my experience. Most teams are under pressure to win now, but the White Sox seem to be playing the long game, even as they compete this season. Now, let's zoom out for a second. The White Sox's deadline moves aren't just about the outfield. They're about their overall strategy. They've had hits and misses with their free agent signings, but what stands out to me is their willingness to learn from those misses. For example, signing proven performers like Seranthony Dominguez and Austin Hayes didn't pan out, but their success with players like Munetaka Murakami and Sean Newcomb shows they're refining their approach. They're not just throwing money at big names. They're identifying undervalued talent and players with upside. This, to me, is what makes their strategy so compelling. It's not just about spending money. It's about spending it smartly. Finally, let's talk about Luis Castillo. Bringing him in during a career-worst season is a bold move, but it's also a calculated one. The White Sox believe they can help him bounce back, and if they're right, it could be a game-changer. But here's the thing. It's not going to happen overnight. Jordan Hicks is a great example of how their development process works. It took time, but now he's a key piece of their bullpen. So, with Castillo, they're playing the long game again. It might not pay off this August, but if it clicks by next June, that's a huge win. So what's the takeaway here? The White Sox are threading a very fine needle. They're addressing immediate needs while also building for the future. It's risky, it's ambitious, and it's not without its challenges. But if it works, they could be setting themselves up for sustained success. Personally, I think this is the kind of bold strategy that separates contenders from champions. What do you think? Are the White Sox making the right moves, or are they spreading themselves too thin? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your take.